Hi, everyone. My name is Gayla Zoes, and I am here today with Robin Lacrimosa, and we are talking about holiday tips when a loved one has dementia. Now, Robin is one of the life care coordinators at Kimbrough Law, and she has decades of experience helping families navigate all manner of journeys or all kinds of challenges that come with aging. And the holidays present a special batch of challenges. Robin, why is that?
For a lot of people, it's because things have changed. Either they're not able to do the things that they used to do, maybe some loved ones have passed away. If they have illnesses or cognitive impairments, that it's a stressful time for the caregiver, for the person themselves, for their families. And honestly, there's so much hype and excitement over the holidays that I think even the most functioning family that doesn't have any challenges probably struggles at the holidays with just expectations of how wonderful things are going to be.
Mm-hmm. And so that's why we're here today. We're going to talk about some tips to deal with all of that. And let's go to our first category of tips, and that is to prioritize what gives the holidays meaning. Talk about what you mean here.
Sure. So sometimes the holidays are not very jolly. And I think that that is probably for a vast majority of people in the world. It's just not something we talk about. But especially when you are maybe a caregiver to someone who has cognitive impairment, um, everything, just even one more thing or one different event can be really stressful. Everyone kind of feels like they already have so much on their plate, and now we have to go over to here to grandma's house, and then we have to go over here to Aunt Susie's, and you know, bring the potatoes and all of those kind of things that go into a holiday. So what I suggest for people is to basically take a step back and decide what's really important. You don't have to go to every family event. You don't have to go to every musical at your church. Kind of think about the things that really bring you joy. What is really important, and focus on that event, and don't try to make yourself crazy doing everything, getting every perfect gift. It's okay to let go of some of the activities, some of the, oh, you're supposed to be here. I always think so. It's kind of, if it gets too stressful, then it's not going to be enjoyable. And it's not going to be enjoyable for probably anyone if you are really stressed out. So try to really consider what brings you the most joy, what seems the most manageable, and just do that. And then the other thing is to really compromise and ask your family to compromise as well. So for some folks, mornings are really good and afternoon and evenings are really not. So consider, your family has always done Christmas Day dinner at 6 o'clock, but that's not going to work out for your loved one. Maybe ask, can we do a Christmas morning breakfast or a brunch? And then the rest of the family can still do Christmas dinner at 6 o'clock if they choose to, but you've gotten to be a part of that event earlier in the day, and then maybe you're not at the event at night.
Mm-hmm.
So just ask your family to kind of compromise and see what you can work out that allows you still to participate in those activities, but without adding more stress to yourself.
Mm-hmm. I think that's good advice. Well, the next set of recommendations you have or tips really focus on communication. Talk us through these.
So communication is always challenging. I have a family of my own. It's just challenging. So communication, I was thinking about this, and it actually means the Latin word for that communicate comes from actually means common. And it really means a sharing of ideas that you have in common. And I got to thinking about that because sometimes we get so tied to a tradition. And this is what we always do. And maybe that tradition no longer serves your family. And so it's a good time to really look at, what you're doing, why you're doing it, and whether that's the best thing to do. Especially when you have someone with like a cognitive impairment, you may want to let family members know before they come some of the changes that maybe grandma has gone through. You're there possibly every day or on the regular, and you see those changes, but some of your family may not have seen them since last year. So you may want to just give them a heads up. Grandma's really hard of hearing now, so you're going to have to speak more slowly and more clearly. You might only be able to ask one question at a time. Don't overwhelm them with questions because they just can't keep up with that. Let them talk. So sometimes the older adult may talk about something that is not what the topic of conversation was, but it's still, they're participating in that conversation. So just let them talk, even if what they're saying doesn't necessarily fit in with whatever the conversation topic had been before that. I think sometimes when families get around older adults that they haven't seen in a while, especially if they've gotten more frail, they're afraid to say or do the wrong thing. A lot of people don't have a lot of experience working with chronically ill older adults or cognitively impaired older adults. And basically, I just tell families to let the other family members know that they don't need to worry about doing the wrong thing. One of the things that I say is that they won't necessarily remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel. So if you have a family member that doesn't feel like they're connecting with grandma the way they used to, I always say, just tell a joke, give her a hug, sit with her on the couch. That's what's going to be important and what they're going to remember. So it may just be, again, especially if you have a more frail person or someone with cognitive impairment, you really want to give your family some tips, some things that you have found useful. So that way they are being set up to be successful in communicating and connecting with these people.
Robin, how do you handle innocent comments made by children? Like if a child notices that something's wrong with great grandma and makes a comment, how do you handle that?
So I'm glad you asked that because I think people get really embarrassed. And what's funny is a lot of times the older adult is like, yep, I use a cane now because I'm wobbly. It doesn't a lot of times upset them as much as it does. I call us the middle folks, the daughters, the sons, and the fact is that children can get away with things like that, and you don't need to make it a big deal. You can just say, yeah, grandma's a little wobbly, so she uses a walker now. And then just let it go at that. I think so many of us, especially if it's not like a direct family member, say like a neighbor or, a sister-in-law's child, everyone gets so embarrassed. And I think we make a big deal out of something that doesn't need to be a big deal. The other thing you can do is in preparing your families, you can say, hey, you have these little kids that are all, 4, 5, 6, 8 years old. Can you just let them know grandma's kind of wobbly? She uses a walker. She's very slow, and they just need to be careful if she's up walking that they don't run by and bump into her. I mean, I think there's things that you can do that the kids a lot of times want to be respectful and they want to, and then they then take on the role of, oh, be careful, grandma's walking, nobody run by grandma. And you can kind of bring them in instead of having them be surprised that grandma has a walker.
Yeah, that's great advice. All right, next you suggest focusing on flexibility and expectations. What do you mean here?
So expectations, the difference, basically expectation means the difference between what we hope and what we imagine an event is going to be like and the reality of what the event is like. And I think in general, this is something that people struggle with about the holidays. You watch, I mean, here in Georgia, we have the Publix commercials where everybody is so happy, and here comes the college kid who wasn't coming home, and it's the best holiday ever. I don't know about your family, but my family, it's not always that way. There's always somebody who's got to stir the pot politically. It's just families come with baggage and with, situations. And sometimes we don't like so-and-so's wife. That is the reality. So you have to be clear about your expectations of what the holiday is going to look like. It's probably not going to look like a Hallmark card, regardless of how much we might like that. And so I always say, kind of plan ahead. Know that Uncle Joe is probably going to egg somebody on. And maybe when Uncle Joe gets started, you just remove yourself from the room. There's just things, that like when it happens, nobody's really surprised. So just plan ahead for that. Make sure you have some snacks. People, a lot of times dinner gets delayed and everyone starts to get hungry. And then that's when people get hangry. So it's always good to bring some snacks, have a quiet place, or have an out so you can go and get away from Uncle Joe, take a break. My sister and I, we have our safe word, which is marshmallow. And so there are certain family members that we just really don't get along with. And if we get in a conversation with one of those, I'll be like, are there any marshmallows? And my sister knows she needs to come and intervene because I have reached the limit of my patience. And this also goes for your older adult too. So if you have older family members that are there, you can watch their body language, kind of see when they're kind of like, they may have had enough. Some of our older adults live very quiet lives. And so all the hubbub and the children and fighting and yelling and happiness, and it gets overwhelming. So you really want to keep an eye on that, watch the body language. Think about how you're feeling. You're going to feel how you feel. There are just certain family members that are just really don't make you feel good about yourself. And you just kind of have to know that and have a plan for it. And then the other thing I say is like, if you are a caregiver in particular, you may be very protective of your older adult. This is what you do. That's you know everything about them. You watch them, you care for them. And sometimes at the holidays, you might need to take a step back and let someone else try to help. So say that you have an older adult who needs help eating. They just can't quite manage the spoon on their own. And maybe one of your cousins or maybe one of your grandchildren is like, oh, I'm going to help grandma eat. Grandma may go home with potatoes on her shirt, but it's okay. Yes, maybe you could have done a better job. Maybe you would have been less messy, but it's okay to step back and let someone else do it, even if it's not exactly the way you would do it.
Mm-hmm. Hearing you talk about each of these, it just really occurs to me that this is really good advice, even if no one has dementia.
Right.
I don't know, the holidays, there's just this huge buildup, and there's this mythos about what it's going to be like. And it rarely measures up to that. And then you factor in somebody who has cognitive impairment or some kind of chronic illness, and then other family members, and then it just sounds to me like it could be a recipe for disaster. But I think these tips will really help. Robin, any final advice? Like if there was one takeaway from all of this that you think is more important than anything else, what would that be?
Just do what brings you joy and feel however you're going to feel, because chances are this holiday is not going to be like past holidays. Things may have changed. And you know what? That's okay. And maybe the next holiday will be better in a different way.
Yeah, that's great advice. Robin, thanks for your time today.